Hi, everybody. So I'm a digital business director at Mars, and I'm going to use my time to tell you a story in 6 parts. All right, so chapter 1 is called Outliers. I've always been a bit of an outlier. This is me and my 2 brothers. We were born a minute apart. I'm the only girl, and I'm also the youngest. I was also a bit of a professional outlier and still am. So I was the only English literature major, actually specifically with an emphasis in 18th century Victorian literature, in my Accenture class of SQL coders and testers, which is the first job that I had out of school. I was also part of a group of people at Nokia trying to convince people like you that this 9300 fits in your pocket and looks cool. I was also part of a group at Nokia who was developing an ultra-low power radio specification that started out with just a stack of papers. And we were trying to basically convince the marketplace that this stack of papers could become possibilities. So this is chapter 2. I'm going to talk a little bit about Mars and its history. So this is Frank C. Mars, another strange group. This guy made candy in his kitchen. Over the years, Mars and the Mars family has grown to acquire or make the products that you see here. It's actually quite a big portfolio. At the core, Mars is an innovation company. An innovation in product, supply and operations, and product design has been around for decades. But there's a new legacy of outliers beginning at Mars. We're trying to figure out how we get past just making this. So the descendants of that last outlier you saw, the guy who made candy in his kitchen, have become a new group of outliers who is trying to figure out what way we can use what we know best about the retailer and the consumer to enter the rapidly changing global digital marketplace. That's where me and some of the people in this room come into the picture. My day job is as a technology architect and strategist. So during the day, I work at figuring out what the business needs today, tomorrow, next week, next year, and oh my God, the next 3 years. Oh, such a big deal. In this way, and if we only look at it this way, traditional innovation strategies are starting to become less competitive. We need to figure out how to be relevant to the customer and consumer of the future. The problem is, and a lot of you can resonate with this, a huge company usually only operates in fairly short horizons of time. So if we only think about what's important next month, next quarter, next year, or God forbid, 3 years from now, we don't see what we can't see, and we don't know what we can't know. Chapter 3, reinterpretations. Things are changing a lot, so I don't need to convince any of you that these factors, especially the disappearance of distinction between what it means to be online and offline, is really, really affecting the space that Mars plays in. There's difference in the way you make offers and a difference in the way you deliver those offers. So what it means to be shopping offline, what it means to be shopping online, and how you do both of those things. And big companies like Mars are just not organized to think in this way, generally speaking. So some of you are maybe already starting to feel this pain of being organized in these silos, these traditional silos for how a business grows. But we're working now on establishing innovation, not just as something that supports and upholds the business, but something that provides a fundamentally new way of working. Something that provides a different way of understanding and interpreting the world. That's why I'm here. So technology as a reinterpretation of the world is one of the most powerful things we can do if we let ourselves. And having exposure to people in this room, people like this or externally sourced thinking, is critical to that journey. But no magical reinterpretation can be done single-handedly. One of the scariest things for a big company is not knowing the answer. So we're used to understanding what step number 252 should be. What exactly is going to happen? What exactly is this going to do? So when we do that, and then we do that, and we partner with you, and then we do that, then what happens, right? So we're used to having the answer page or the answer book. And when we introduce a startup from Plug and Play, the first challenge we have, the very first challenge we have, is the interpretation of that idea, okay? So what we understand, what I understand is meaningful and relevant, valuable. What my coworkers understand is meaningful, relevant, and valuable. What all of those functional circles understand is meaningful, relevant, and valuable can be all expressed in completely different sets of language. Translating new spaces of technology or new possibilities can be really, really, really hard, which I'm sure you know, especially when that technology is creating a new possibility. For example, it is really, really hard to explain the game of baseball using the rules of football. And we're scared of failure. So we are constantly scared that we will spend a bunch of time and energy on an idea that won't work or won't scale. And then how do we explain ourselves? And I feel sometimes that I am helping to try to get people to see outside their normal way of viewing. So if you see those functional silos as all peering through some set of binoculars in a particular direction, sometimes it can feel like you're waving off to the side of them like, hey, look over here, look over here. So how do we make it happen? How do we make that reinterpretation happen? So getting a new technology adapted by a big company takes a lot of decidedly uninterpretive things. It takes a lot of spreadsheets. It takes a lot of meetings. It takes a lot of conference calls. It takes a lot of decision makers. You have to budget and get the budget accepted. And at the end, a lot of people have to weigh in. The bottom line is it takes a lot of people to make possible possible. One big aha that we had, and I had to resurrect this meme, that the unimpressed gymnast, you guys remember that one? It's at the bottom. The one aha moment we had was it is harder for people to make that interpretation. It's one of the hardest things that people do. So the harder it is to make the interpretation of the new technology, the more people have to weigh in, the more time intensive it is, and the higher the perceived cost of doing that work. So what we came to realize is, in Chapter 5, we have to try to make this easy. So what we did is we ended up having to do a lot of work with the segments. So Mars has 5 segments: gum, chocolate, pet food, and food. So Uncle Ben's, rice, Seeds of Change. There's some brands out there that are Mars brands. Flavia, the drinks that you put in the machines at work. And as you can imagine, with those different business models, the segment challenges are all articulated a little bit differently. And we needed to frame those challenges in a context. We also, that was understood and could be translated into the technology space of possibility. We also needed to get protected money. So very practically, we got some money from corporate innovation that was protected that we could use to try some of this stuff to help unlock or remove the barriers when we're dealing with segments or people who are still looking through their telescopes. We also worked with a local company in the Valley, N-Cubed, to create a methodology for sourcing and matching innovation at Mars. And we worked with them to establish a workflow with handoffs and touch points to demystify this process, because I think some of the time what happens is you have the initial meeting and then what's perceived as this huge lack of communication or this big black box. The idea goes into this big black corporate box and no one ever hears anything. And how do we move through this space effectively? We also established some criteria that we use that are agreed criteria to evaluate what technology is going to fit. And then finally, when you get past all of this, so you figure out how to make it easy, you establish the workflows that help the process move along, who the decision makers will be. That's where the magic starts to happen. So let's move back to outliers for a moment. It takes a lot of looking to find the technology that is going to work for a very old multi-segment global company. That technology has to be special. It has to be unique. In fact, we've evaluated to date a little over 350 startups. We've qualified 20 of them against our criteria and against a segment challenge, and we've moved into, in just over a year, about 3 pilots. But it's this moment in time. It's the moment where you get to pair what can't be done or what you think can't be done, which is the business challenge, with what can be done, which is the people in this room creating those ideas. That's worth the effort entirely. And we're not done searching. Thank you.